Memorial Day right up to Columbus Day. And once that summit station closes, there is no shelter up there. And trust me, you do not want to be up there without any shelter, not on this mountain. So once that happens, once they shut everything down, we go up to our Wambeck station at about 4,000 feet. So it's about a 12-minute ride up there. That's where we're headed today. So we have a nice bonfire burning up there. We have 3 warming huts. We have some hot refreshments for you guys. So you'll be getting off the train and stretching your legs a little bit. And can't promise you any views today. It's been a pretty kind of blustery day up there. So it's been windy and snowy. The snow kind of cut down a little bit, and the wind died down a little bit on the last trip. So we'll see what it looks like when we get up there. So anyway, my name's Randy. I'm going to be your brakeman today. This gentleman right here is Steven. He'll be back in the M5 behind us, our engineer. And we're going to take him to Wambeck. Now, usually at this point in the trip, right before we shove off, I like to give you a bit of a safety tour of the coach, and I will do that. But obviously this year we have to talk about a couple of other things as well, and that's all the COVID stuff. So I should let you know that we are still running under some pretty heavy restrictions that are issued by the state of New Hampshire for tourist trains. So there's just a couple of things that concern all of you, and they're pretty obvious at this point. While you're inside the coach or in any of our buildings, you need to keep your mask on. That's important. I have mine here, but I also have it down right now because if I were to be talking through it, it would sound like I'm talking into a sock. You wouldn't be able to hear me. So as long as I'm out here on the front deck, I'm going to keep the mask down. But inside the coach, please keep your mask on. Now the other thing, and this has been the thing that's really affected us the most up here this year, is we've only been allowed to sell our coaches to 50% capacity. So when we have a full train, normally it's 70 people. This year it's only been 35. So it's been kind of challenging for us, but we've managed it pretty well. But what that capacity decrease allows us to do is keep at least one empty row in between family groups. That's front and back and side to side. So I noticed we had a couple of larger groups here. If you guys are family, you all came up together. If you want to get a little bit closer, you're welcome to do that. But if you don't recognize the people in front of you or behind you, we want to make sure we keep that safe distance. All right, so that's it for COVID. That's easy. By the way, we've been running a pretty safe operation this year. We're pretty happy that things have worked out as well as they have for us this year. So we do appreciate your cooperation with all of this. All right, now the normal stuff we talk about from a safety standpoint really kind of starts with the obvious. This is a mountain climbing train, and as you might imagine, it's a pretty steep climb. So the average grade on the Cog Railway is 25%. And what that means is that for every 100 feet we move forward, we're going to gain about 25 feet in elevation. Now, there are a couple of points that are actually quite a bit steeper than that. One is Jacob's Ladder. That's a trestle just under tree line, so just above, or actually just below 5,000 feet. We're not going to be getting up that high today, but Jacob's Ladder is the second steepest railway trestle in the world. It's on a 38% grade. We won't be getting up the Jacob's Ladder, but we will be climbing Cold Springs Hill, which is the second steepest part of the railway, and that is at a 35% grade. So for that reason alone, I'd prefer that you guys just stay in your seat till we're safely up to Wambeck. Like I said, it's a pretty quick trip up there. But if you do want to move around the coach, please do it carefully. It's real easy to lose your balance. We've seen people fall. I don't want to see anybody fall on this trip. So I want to keep everybody safe and uninjured. So if you do move around the coach, just use the seat backs to hold on to. Just try to help us keep that safe distance also. Now, this always stymies me. I don't know why. We always get this question. People always want to know about the brakes on this train, and I have no idea why. Why would you be interested in such a mundane topic as the brakes on this train? But if that is something that interests you, I should probably tell you that we have plenty of redundancies. We have plenty of ways of stopping this train. We're not going to use any of them today, at least not until we get up to Wambeck and park the engine. We do have one feature on the coach that I have activated right now, and it's not really a brake, it's actually more like a clutch, and it's called the sprag. And what that does is it locks the cog gears underneath the coach so we can only roll in one direction, which is up the hill. We can't roll backwards. Now, I don't know how you feel about that. I kind of like the sprag. That's one of my favorite features here at the Cog Railway since I work on the trains every day. So all of the braking for the coach is controlled from the rear of the coach back there, plus we have a kill switch up front here. We can actually stop the entire train from up front if we have to. But that stuff in the back of the coach, please don't touch that. I usually don't have to ask twice. So that's all the brakes for the coach. We'll tell you a little bit more about that on the way back down. Now, this is a two-man crew. We have an engineer back in the locomotive. We have a brakeman up front. Now, I'm normally an engineer here, and I can tell you, well, I should probably first tell you that our brakemen, most of our brakemen are actually seasonal employees. So most of our brakemen have gone off to warmer climates. At least that's what I'm imagining they're doing. And that leaves all of us full-time employees up here to kind of do double duty. So I was back in the M5 yesterday, but today I'm up front. And I can tell you, from sitting back in that locomotive, you really can't see very much. We can see the backs of everybody's head on this side of the coach. If the weather's clear, we can see a couple hundred feet ahead of us up the tracks. But what we can't see is important, and that's what's right in front of the train. So all of us trust our brakemen, the job that I'm doing today, they trust our brakemen to act as the engineer's eyes. So my most important responsibility is to keep my eyes forward today, and we're going to do a track inspection just to make sure everything looks the way it's supposed to look. So far it has all day today, so I don't expect anything to be any different, but you never know. So I will have to signal Stephen every now and then through this window, or maybe even inside like this. If anybody happens to be standing up over on this side, I might ask you to sit down for a second just so he can see me. All right, does that sound good? Yeah. Everybody excited?
Yeah.
Yes. Anybody want to get off the train?
No.
No? Good. Now, it is chilly up there. It's windy. I'm not going to try to, we're not going to put lipstick on the pig. It is a, we'll call it a blustery day today. So things have settled down a little bit, at least on the last trip. And like I said, we do have those warming huts, and we have a real big fire burning today. So it should be reasonably pleasant up there. One other thing, you guys want me to narrate the trip today? You want to hear about the Cog Railway? And good. Always want to check, though. You never know. All right, so we still have a couple of minutes. I mentioned the assigned seating and the safe distance and everything. Honestly, guys, I don't care where you sit as long as you follow that safe, the safe distance rule. We usually have a rush of people at the last second, right before they release us. So I might see a group of people come running out here. So just the fact that it's not full yet doesn't mean that it won't be full. That happened on the last trip. So just keep that in mind. All right, so you guys are all together, right? All right, perfect. Excellent.
She wants you to come up closer.
All right. Looks like they don't like each other. They came together, but they're sitting far apart. So, all right, folks, so we will be underway shortly. So once again, welcome aboard. All right, so as we approach the Ammonoosuc River up ahead here, over on the right, look at that odd-looking contraption over there. That's pepper sass. That's our original locomotive. That's actually the machine that built the Cog Railway. It was built back in 1866, and it has that distinctive vertical boiler. And the boiler was built on a trunnion, so it could actually kind of pivot as the engine hit grade and try to keep the water at a fairly efficient level. But it really wasn't a very efficient machine. It took pepper sass 5 hours to get up to the summit. Now, just by comparison, the diesel locomotive behind us, if we were going all the way to the summit, we'd be up there in 42 minutes if everything went according to plan. We still run 2 vintage steam locomotives up here in the summer and fall. Both of those steam engines are over 100 years old, but they are still quite a bit more efficient than pepper sass. The steamers take about an hour to make that same trip to the summit. So a little bit slower than we are, but quite a bit faster than pepper sass. And this is the Ammonoosuc River we're crossing over. This river, the source of the river is actually just below the summit of Mount Washington. 2 high mountain lakes, they're called the Lakes of the Clouds. And the river runs down the Ammonoosuc Ravine and underneath our bridge right here, and eventually all the way out into the Connecticut River. So I want everybody to just double check, make sure your seatbelts are securely fastened, because you're about to feel an explosive burst of acceleration. Stephen's going to step on the gas, and we will very quickly be at our hair-raising, ludicrous top speed of about 5 miles an hour, 5. So hold on tight, here we go. check out our website at thecog.com. We put a video up on the homepage that was shot up here last summer. The Red Bull energy drink company came up here and they shot a commercial with us. You see this little dirt road here alongside the tracks on the right. This is our service road. We use this for heavy equipment to assist in track work. And they turned this dirt road into a mountain bike course. And they brought one of the world's top mountain bike champions up here to run the course all the way down from the summit. Now, of course, he was doing all kinds of crazy stunts on the way down. But it all kind of culminated right behind us where they built this really high ramp. Kind of looked like one of those old-fashioned wooden ski jumps. And this kid was flying over the top of our trains as we went up the mountain. It was really something to see. Now, I remember as I was bringing passengers underneath that ramp, I told everybody on the left-hand side of the coach to keep their windows closed, just in case that kid didn't have enough Red Bull in his system. But apparently he did, because he made every one of those jumps perfectly. So once again, if you want to check that out, it's on our homepage, thecog.com. And while you're on the website, there is a whole lot of information on that website. Lots of pictures, photographs, videos, all kinds of technical information, stories, history, all kinds of stuff. So if you're interested in any of this, that would be a good place to stop. It's thecog.com. Alright, so in the meantime, let me see what I can tell you about the Cog Railway and how this all came to be. Now, this remarkable operation was the brainchild of a guy named Sylvester Marsh. He was a New Hampshire native, but he spent most of his working life out in Chicago in the meat packing and the grain drying industries. Now, he was a really smart guy, a real innovative businessman, and he made a whole lot of money out there in Chicago. Now, he retired from business in 1855, and he came back east, although not directly to New Hampshire. He settled just outside of Boston, but he had developed a stomach condition, so he came back up here frequently. He said that being up here in the mountains and fresh air and exercise really made him feel a whole lot better. So one morning in 1857, along with his pastor, Sylvester decided to take a hike up to the summit of Mount Washington. Now, as things would turn out, that hike would forever change his life, and it would even reach down through the years and touch all of ours as well, because here we are on a train riding along the side of this mountain on his very tracks. Now, when these two guys set out that morning, it was actually a pretty nice day. But what happened once they reached tree line is what often happens up here. The weather went from being pretty nice to pretty dreadful to eventually life-threatening. Now, that's actually not at all unusual up here. These are some extraordinarily dangerous mountains in the wrong weather conditions. Unfortunately, Sylvester Marsh found that out the hard way. Now, they were headed for the Tip Top House. That's a hotel that had been built up on the summit just a couple of years earlier. And apparently the storm was so bad that Marsh and his pastor made it through the Tip Top House, the front doors of the Tip Top House, just barely with their lives. Now, the storm cleared overnight. Marsh woke up the next morning, went outside to take a look around, and he was pretty impressed by what he saw. The view was pretty nice that morning. So I suppose it was this entire experience that caused him to have a bit of an epiphany, because he made the decision right there that he was going to try to figure out a way to get more people up to the summit and then back down again safely and efficiently. As I mentioned before, he was a pretty smart guy. He was a real innovator. He was a modern man of his era who happened to have a whole lot of money. So, of course, he wanted to use a steam train to get people up and down this mountain safely. That was pretty unheard of back in the 1850s. But he knew that if he was going to do that, he'd have to figure out a whole lot of new technology to make that happen. He had to solve a lot of problems. Now, the two biggest problems that he faced right at the beginning of the project involved this very rugged, rocky terrain, let alone these very steep grades. Now, the way he solved the terrain problem was actually pretty simple. He just decided to elevate the tracks. He got the tracks up above ground level on this very long, complex trestle. We happen to be the only railway in the world whose main line is built entirely above ground level. And by getting the tracks off the surface of the mountain like that, he was able to pretty much just otherwise ignore the rugged terrain. But the other problem, the grade problem, was a little stickier, and this is where he had to really do some innovative thinking. Now, a lot of people think that Sylvester Marsh actually invented the cog and rack mechanism. He did not invent it. However, he is the first person to figure out a way to use it successfully on a mountain climbing train. Now, I know it's a little hard for you to see from where you are right now, but once we get up to Wambeck, I want you to take a good look at our tracks. And you'll notice that we have the two standard running rails that are pretty common. Pretty much all trains run on visual here is this center structure. This is called the rack. And if you want to understand how the railway works, you can think of the rack kind of like the chain on your bicycle. It's actually almost exactly like that. It just pulled out straight. And then underneath the locomotive behind us, there's a number of very large, heavy gears. These are called cogs, and you can think of them as the sprockets on your bicycle. And as those cog gears turn, the locomotive behind us just pulls us up the mountain. Now, Marsh was absolutely convinced that this was going to work. But before he could start building everything up here, he had to get a charter from the state of New Hampshire to allow him to do that. So in 1858, he went down to the State House in Concord, seeking that charter. And as you might imagine, when he got down there, he was nearly laughed out of the building. They thought he was absolutely insane to want to try something like this. Now, they thought he was insane, but they did a strange thing. They actually gave him the charter anyway. And the theory around here is the reason he got that charter was they wanted to watch him fail. They wanted to see him make a fool of himself. Of course, once again, Sylvester Marsh got the last laugh, obviously. But as he was leaving the building that day, one of the legislators sort of got in his face and said to him with quite a bit of sarcasm in his voice, "Go ahead, Marsh, go ahead and build that railway to the top of Mount Washington. And once you get up there, why don't you just keep going? Why don't you build a railway to the moon?" And folks, that's how we got our nickname, the Railway to the Moon. A lot of people still call us that. As a matter of fact, some of the hikers up here have even developed a bit of a signal that they give us, a little kind of sign of appreciation. These are the ones I consider to be the more intelligent students of history, because what happens is when they see us coming, some of these smart hikers will actually turn around and drop their trousers and wag their backsides at the train as we pass. We are the railway to the moon, after all, right? So this is, they're just trying to show how much they love the Cog Railway. Now, it's unlikely we're going to see it today, but just in case, I need to ask everybody to please refrain from returning the gesture. That's not necessary. It actually means something completely different if you do it back to the hikers. And we don't want to start any more fights up here. All right, so anyway, Marsh got the charter in 1858, went to work, started designing all this. The construction phase was interrupted by the American Civil War. But in 1866, he formed the Mount Washington Railway Company. He hired about 300 workers. Many of them were young men returning home from the war. They were looking for work. He had a lot of work for them. It goes on July 3rd, 1869, just 3 years later, he made his first revenue trip to the summit of Mount Washington with passengers. This entire railway only took 3 years to build. Pretty amazing part of the story, actually. All right, so we have a switch right here. We're going to stop. I'm going to take a good look at it, and we will signal Stephen that it's clear. Looks pretty good to me. By the way, one of our first passengers that year, 1869, was President Ulysses S. Grant. Right after that, we had P.T. Barnum up here, the famous circus showman. He got off the train up at the summit. He took a look around and he said, "This is the second greatest show on Earth." It's actually pretty high praise coming from the guy whose circus was the greatest show on Earth. And this whole thing happened less than 2 months after the completion of the first transcontinental railroad in the United States. A very famous Golden Spike was driven out in Promontory, Utah on May 10th, 1869. And for the very first time, the United States was connected by rail from coast to coast. Marsh came along just a couple of months later, made that trip to the summit. So he was right in the middle of all this incredible innovation that was happening back during the height of the Industrial Revolution. Here's the Wambeck water tank just ahead of us. It's empty right now. However, during the summer and fall, it is full of about 8,000 gallons of water. And that's for our steam locomotives. They actually have to stop here and top off the water level in their boiler. It takes 1,000 gallons of water and 1 ton of coal to make one round trip on a steam train. This biodiesel engine behind us, by comparison, if it was making that same round trip, he'd use about 20 gallons of diesel fuel. It's a very efficient machine back there. All right, now this is not Bigfoot ahead of us. This is Josh. He's our station master today, and this is Wambeck Station. So we're going to be getting off the train in just a moment here, guys. I want to ask everyone to please stay off the tracks once you get off the train. I know you're going to be tempted to climb up there and take a selfie. Please don't do that. It is extremely dangerous. They're very slippery and they're very steep. We've seen people get injured up here. Some of our own guys have gotten injured pretty badly up here. All right, so I'm going to hang up the mic. We're going to get Stephen onto the platform safely. Stephen onto the platform, and we'll let you know when it's safe to get off the train. So welcome to Wabeck Station, everybody. Perfect. All right, guys, so we're still on a bit of a grade here, and the platform is left.